I'm made to understand you still have 8 minutes more. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity yet again. And just want to reiterate that I couldn't say within 1 minute that I was grateful that you recognize that there are women also in this house. I know that sometimes men don't notice us, but I do want to thank you for giving me that opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that I've commenced my discussions around this bill, and I'd wanted to give specific recommendations for amendments in the bill. However, from what I was hearing, the way the committee was going, I am going to refrain from making the specific recommendations in regard to the bill, but I'm instead going to talk broadly about the bill. Mr. Speaker, as I indicated yesterday, if you look at the long title and the content of the bill, they do not match the actual title of the bill. The bill is the Natural Resource Benefit Sharing Bill 2022. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at what it seeks to do is to actually discuss the issues of benefit sharing in terms of natural resources between the national government and the county governments. Mr. Speaker, what this then does is to forget the international framework in terms of sharing of benefits at the international level. Mr. Speaker, when we are talking about natural resource and benefit sharing, it would be a fallacy for us not to consider what the international legal framework provides. Mr. Speaker, as I indicated earlier, and I just want to reiterate, Article 2.5 and 2.6 of the Constitution provides that any treaty that is ratified by Kenya becomes part of the laws of Kenya. And Mr. Speaker, Kenya has ratified several treaties that have to do with the natural resources. I want to give an example of the Convention on Biological Diversity that has been ratified by Kenya that talks largely around the issue of benefit sharing, but mainly around genetic resources. Mr. Speaker, the Nagoya Protocol on Access to Genetic Resources and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from their utilization also speaks to the issue of genetic resources. Mr. Speaker, however, this bill talks not only of genetic resources, but it talks very broadly around the issue of benefit sharing of natural resources. And again, what it has discussed broadly issues such as sunshine, lakes, oceans, and all that, Mr. Speaker. But I want to say that we must develop a legislative framework that protects our resources from exploitation and predicates the transfer on royalties and the transfer of technologies, amongst other things. Mr. Speaker, I'm not too sure whether the person who sponsored this bill is aware of that framework, Mr. Speaker. And my concern is that if we reduce this issue to a county, a national government issue, or county to county issue, then we miss the point. And my concern from what the committee was saying, the committee was raising constitutional issues and other issues. But for me, Mr. Speaker, if it is not defeated at the second reading, Mr. Speaker, then I will bring comprehensive amendments that actually have to do with the international legal framework. And perhaps at that point, the committee will raise another issue that perhaps my amendments are too many that may require the coming up of a new bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to one of our natural resources. And again, from what I'm seeing in this bill, it is only focusing where, for instance, you are dealing with one county to another, where one resource is in one county and the benefits transcends to another county. Mr. Speaker, I want to give the example of Lake Victoria, and my constituency has a very big portion of Lake Victoria. Mr. Speaker, many of us in the past thought that water is an infinite resource, but over the years it has become evident that even water is not endless, Mr. Speaker. And because of that, there's increasing conflict within Lake Victoria, Mr. Speaker, which is based on the fact that you have very many people, right from northern Kenya to other counties, that are fishing within Subanap. Mr. Speaker, I would actually welcome you. You would be surprised to find people from your own constituency that own the largest amount of boats in my constituency. And we do welcome them, we don't oppose it. But what the challenge is that when you have a situation like that, then people start fighting over where they park the boats. People fight over the fishing areas. Like I had to call a meeting of conflict resolution between omena fishers, Nile perch fishers, and fishers of other kinds of fish, because you find that there are people who fish at night and others who fish at day. When the people who fish at day come and they put their nets during the daytime, and the omena fishers come in the night, they discover that there is no more space to put their nets. So what do? They cut off loose the nets for the people who put their nets in the day, and once they cut off, the ones who had put their fish in the daytime, when they come back, all their fish have either escaped or have been stolen. This has led to conflicts where people have actually harmed themselves. The other issue, of course, that has arisen is that when you have land as a resource, you can be given title deed. But when you have water, there is no title deed to water. So what happens is that people come from all over, the crowd super north. The people who have been artisanal fishers no longer have space even to fish. And Mr. Speaker, what then happens is you find, for instance, I'm the one who actually promoted the ex-situ and in-situ fishing. And for in-situ fishing, I encourage the issue of using cage fishing. And Mr. Speaker, the challenge now is we have many people who as far as from China. And when they come to fish, which again we welcome because it actually provides job opportunities for our local people. But then the challenge is for artisanal fishers. There is no longer space in the lake to fish. I have been raising this issue, and I'm going to bring an amendment to the Fisheries Management Act to raise issues around this. And I've actually raised this even with our county government, that there is a need for urgent regulation, because otherwise people are going to kill themselves over this. Already there are people who are being killed or who are hurt because of the fight over these natural resources. But Mr. Speaker, when you look at this bill, it does not address those pertinent issues. And that's why for me, I would want us to look at this bill in terms of how does it address a situation where international agencies or bodies are exploiting our own resources as a country. For instance, Mr. Speaker, in the past I've given the example of Endod, which is an Ethiopian plant that has actually enhanced the chances of young children from surviving leukemia. And yet, you find that people from outside Ethiopia have gone and used this plant for their own purposes. Sorry, not Endod. Endod is actually used for a different thing, Mr. Speaker. But you find that they give intellectual property rights to these agencies. Mr. Speaker, I can see my time is up, but again, as I've said, that if we get opportunity, I will bring amendments if it is not defeated at the second stage, because it has left quite a lot outside the framework that it should actually have. And that's why I was telling the committee, in a way I agree with them and in a way I don't, because we do need a legislative framework on benefit sharing for natural resources. Thank you.
The Honorable Timothy Troitich.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important